Hello, everyone, and welcome to NIIM. I think we might still have a couple of people joining us, but I'm delighted to let you know that tonight is the in-person and online, and we've got 35, I think, lovely women online as well. They'll be able to see the slides, they'll be able to see the presenter, and we'll get some questions and feedback from them along the way in the chat box. So that's great that we've got a hybrid. And who would have known that we would be doing this? Because I think the last time that we had International Women's Day event at NIIM was 2020, which was probably a couple of weeks before we were all locked down in Melbourne and the pandemic hit us. So little did we know what was ahead. So my name is Amanda Quealy, and I'm the Chief Executive at NIIM, and I started here, I think, probably about a couple of weeks before International Women's Day 3 years ago. So we're really celebrating with other women around the world. I mean, tomorrow is officially International Women's Day, but we're celebrating the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women here. And tonight we've got three amazing speakers who are all connected with NIIM, and I'll talk to you about a little bit about them in a moment. They're really going to explore around the pathways to self-empowerment and a holistic health approach to health for women. So I think many of you might know NIIM, but for those that don't, we're quite a diverse organisation. So the National Institute of Integrative Medicine has a clinical practice, which is NIIM Clinic. We've got almost, I think, 30 practitioners down there, primarily integrative GPs, but other allied health professionals as well, health coaches, naturopaths, psychology, traditional Chinese medicine. And we have hyperbaric therapy, which has been a new program that we've got up and running in the last 6 months. We've got a hyperbaric suite, which hyperbaric oxygen has proven to be particularly successful overseas and in the public hospital system. And we're one of the few private providers to provide oxygen therapy, which has really been demonstrated to be effective around individuals with chronic type conditions like chronic fatigue, people going through cancer treatment, etc., really to give them a lot more energy. We have our IB clinic and we have the NIIM dispensary, which is on ground floor. And then under our charitable arm, which is NIIM Limited, we've got our research and our education. And tonight is obviously part of our education program, where we want to really play a part in raising health awareness around an integrative approach to healthcare, as well as we also provide education to practitioners around professional development and the promotion of a whole range of interventions for individuals from a medical and a allied health perspective. So each presenter has about 20 minutes this evening to present. And we do have a lucky door prize at the end of the night, so please stick around till the end. It's very well worth receiving. So in terms of our speakers, we've got Dr. Michelle Woolhouse. Michelle is an integrative GP who works here at NIIM. She's author of the new book, The Wonder Within, a heart-led playbook for the anxious, stressed and burnt out. Dr. Woolhouse's philosophy is that healthcare should focus on the person as a whole and address the physical, psychological, social and spiritual well-being of the individual. And if you want to purchase that book tonight, it's out there at the front desk where you came out of the lift, or we'll send you a link to be online. We've also got Romy Burston, who is a registered integrative nutritionalist, accredited health and wellness coach and body image coach, who also works here at NIIM. And finally, Carolyn Hayes. So Carolyn is an integrative mentor who has worked in private practice and facilitated self-empowerment groups, supporting individuals through their journeys of personal transformation. So I'll ask each individual presenter to come up and we'll be giving you a 5-minute warning. At the end of the 3 presentations, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A, and then we'll have our lucky door prize. So I'd like to invite Carolyn to start. Carolyn, as I mentioned, is an integrative mentor, and she really focuses on helping people challenging their own narrative and guiding them from a place of survival to a mindset of that's grounded in harmony, self-worth, and grounding. And so Carolyn also is the co-founder of Enliven Retreats, which she runs with Dr. Michelle Woodhouse. So thank you, Carolyn.
Well, thank you so much for coming this evening. I've certainly needed to use all the skills that I'm going to share with you tonight. In the lead up to tonight, I'm not a natural extrovert, so but I do have a deep strength and passion for what I call the health and well-being that can come from emotional and physical, and monitoring our mental health and our mindset, and the messages that we have grown accustomed to, and also what we've inherited, and ideas that we've become familiar with that we can challenge at different times in our life. I just want to check that you can hear me and understand me. Fantastic. So I'm going to offer a guided meditation just to help us all to arrive here more fully into our bodies. And at the end of that, I'll just speak to and share a short poem that really helps me to stay grounded and to stay in the potential of life, as well as taking note of the messages that are coming that are no longer helpful for me, and yeah, to really find my strength in myself and sharing that with others then as well, and encouraging women. You know, I have this, I'm one of five girls, so I've seen growing up in Ireland, and I've lived through where, you know, where women have been repressed and had to find their place and lose their voice, and that's something I still deal with in my life. But what I found and saw and noticed as I grew up was the power that can come when women band together. And so you're obviously women who are interested in being here tonight, and also sitting among women, and us helping to support each other and encourage each other and welcome the difference as well as the similarities that we share, and claiming that uniqueness that's in all of us. I see that we're human and we're beings, so we're human beings. And sometimes we have to focus on the humanness to just come through life and to survive. And then if we're lucky, we get to a place where we can start reflecting on that individualness that makes us all different and yet still connected. So I want to invite you to find support for yourself on the chair. And if you're at, you know, for those women who are at home, I'd invite you to, if you want to lie down, but really finding your own sense of you and the support that's naturally there for you. Grounding maybe your feet, so placing your feet on the ground and connecting yourself to the earth. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, if you don't, absolutely leave them open, or maybe turning them inwards. So when we turn to reflect or meditate, it's collecting our attention and our presence and bringing it back home to ourselves. And how my recommendation is, it's really useful to acknowledge and to notice, and then to pause before jumping in and making an assessment of why you feel like you do. And also to start using breath as a way of releasing pent-up tension and fear through your exhalation, and then using your inhalation to call in oxygen, life force, more energy. Maybe creating a bit of separation between your top and your bottom teeth. That really helps our nervous system to remind itself that I'm safe now. You've got you. If your hands are on your body or near your body, you can use your hands. Our palms can be like an extension of our heart. And so what I know about women is women are fantastic at giving and supporting. And it's just an invitation to collect some of that energy and that presence and bring it back to yourself and gift yourself some of your own attention. And always with kindness and compassion. Curiosity, kindness, compassion. There'll be gaps where there'll be silence. And that's just an invitation for you to drop deeper into your body. Letting your body naturally release, whether that's through yawning, moving, just finding your own center. Claiming your right to be here right now in this moment. So much power available in this moment. Letting go, releasing any burdens, any sense of holding. Creating a sense of safety within you. And if you've noticed you've drifted off, just acknowledging, noticing that and acknowledging it. Pausing and really bounding that inner judge. And connecting with your breath. Exhale to release any charge or excess, and then inhaling to bring more life force into you. And so I'm going to read a short poem, and just allowing yourself to receive. Notice what comes up for you. Pause, acknowledge, and using your breath as a tool for empowerment and for transformation. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking, so other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as you let your own light shine, you unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so that's from Marianne Williamson. And so just noting within yourself any changes in your experience of you, just noting your mind, noticing any emotions, really observing them, being curious about them, and trying not to attach to anything. And then taking a collective inhalation together so that we collectively inhale and exhale, bringing some movement in your time. And before opening your eyes, just imagining what it would be like for you if you could embody self-kindness, self-compassion, and start championing you as you are, this human being. And then bringing some movement to your feet and to your hands, and opening your eyes. And just seeing if you can hold this place and really trying to practice that simple notice, remaining open, acknowledging whatever comes up, but using your breath as your facilitator for changing your state. And so I want to begin with mindset. So for me, my mind was what really helped me to come out of fight or flight and finding empowerment when I was younger in my life. And we often think if we wake up or we have a habitual way of, being in our mind, that we can't change that. And I'm here to invite you to maybe reframe that or to rethink that. And so our minds can be open, and everybody knows what it feels like to be in a room or be in conversation with someone with an open mindset. It's invigorating, it's energizing. They usually speak with and offer energy. And likewise, when we're in that negative mindset or that closed mindset, how draining it can be, how much it takes our energy. And even when you find yourself in that negative mindset, which is very human, it's very normal, just remembering, even if you can lean in towards neutrality, even bringing yourself back from the closed mind and bringing yourself towards a neutral mindset can help you to de-armor, de-stress, and hold yourself in a way that leaves you open to be more engaged with your life and with the challenges that are presented to us in our life. I often think, imagine if we went into schools and educated our children and our girls about the reality of what's coming. That there will be challenges, they will come through them. There is support there for them. And self-belief is something that we can learn, that we can change. We can change our destiny by changing our mind and changing our relationship to our bodies, and also for our opinions and the unconscious limits that we set or that are set for us by others. We can break through those ceilings. To me, it begins in the mind and the emotional energy. Because once we have a bit of clarity there and a bit of confidence around our ability to manage these inner states, it helps us to move into changing our outward states. We live in a world that, we're sold a package of, if you have this, or if you get the car, if this happens, that you're going to find happiness. And what most of us are wise enough to know is that, when we work towards something and we get it, often there's a kind of anticlimax when it comes, because we think that's going to be the answer, but really the answer is in you. And it's about finding the time to create space for you in the midst of all the other demands and expectations that are there in our normal everyday life. So we've done that. And this, oh yeah, I was looking at that. So this regulation and the survival modes fascinate me. I'm fascinated by our continuous, or maybe my continuous loyalty to fight, flight, freeze, and appease. And it's quite scary to wake up and to realize how much and how long and how often we're in these spaces, and that how normalized they've become. And, it's about not even I suppose it's easier to accept that we're going to have reactions when we're threatened. You know, we come towards somebody and they'll offer us advice, but we don't really want it. And our instinct is to push back or to ignore. So the fight one is very clear, is that, you know, there's something happens or somebody said something and there's an impulse, there's an energetic impulse and an energy to fight back. And what a lot of gentle people do is they don't externalize it, but they hold it in, and then they'll re-loop all day, rethinking, I should have said that, why didn't I say that? Which is all the beating up of ourselves and taking away self-esteem and self-belief. And so, you know, just recognizing that this is a human condition, and you can come out of it, but we have to actually know that we're in it so we can change the state. So it's like recognizing that you're in a negative mindset is actually a great gift. Recognizing I'm on present here. I want to lash out. I feel rage and I want to blame somebody or put it on somebody. But the healing response is to hold that, to regulate you, to breathe, to calm yourself, to talk to yourself, so that when you go back and discuss it, there's not the added charge that then lets somebody else come in and dominate again. And you know, when we're in heated discussions, it ends up that the topic is lost and it's all about who's winning, because this is the fight. And usually that comes from a place of wanting power over something. The flight one, which is the rabbit in the headlights, where we want to actually run away from the threat. We want to leave. We feel anxious. We still feel high charge, but it's more anxious, panic. And so there again, it's noticing, like avoiding, like, get me out of here. Get me out of this intensity. And so by learning to live with a bit of conscious discomfort, which is doing things that isn't within your normal range, helps us to get the strength then that when life happens, that we can hold ourselves in kindness, be kind, know that most people don't really want to hurt our feelings. And most of the world that we live in is from a place of survival. And so it's like if there was a fire alarm going off, most of us would react in our habitual way. We'd have the fighters, the flighters, the freeze. So for me, the freeze is when the lights are on, but there's nobody at home. Everything looks all right and but there's no energy coming to you or from you. And that disassociation and the numbness and the shutdown and the low energy, the fatigue, because the life force that wants to move is being held back by us as a way of keeping ourselves safe. And, you know, for most of us, that's probably really worked in our younger life. But it's then deciding, how am I going to change my responses so that I can have more energy for me, especially with the freeze. And then the fawn and the appease, you know, the complimenting, the people pleasing, the codependency, like how checking in with every single person in your family except yourself. You know, sending a how are you, what was that like for you? Because there's kind of a program in us that if I can keep everyone else happy and make sure there's not too much aggro, then everybody will be happy and everyone will feel better, and then I will feel better. But it doesn't always end up like that, because we're left with this discontent and these uncomfortable feelings, and then we go into our head. So it's like going into another area to try work out, why am I feeling this in my gut? So these are survival modes. These are what happens to us every day. And there are ways that you can regulate yourself and bring yourself back into a heart space and back into a more heart-based and safer space within your body. I've just got a sign saying I've got 5 minutes left. So obviously I needed more than 20 minutes. the foundations of all these affirmations is to turn your attention towards you, creating safety within you, so that even though when your external world doesn't feel safe, or there's a disruption, or there's a time of change, that you can actually soothe and take care of you in a more informed way. And for a lot of people, you know, their mindset really helps them. But then there are more of us that need movement. We need to, you know, walk. We need to go to our medicine place. So in nature, whether that's to the beach. What are the other great ones? Singing, drinking water, putting on music, dancing, practicing yoga, getting into bed. You know, if you're a doer and you're always doing and you feel agitated, sometimes it's actually good to get under the covers, put your hands on your body and just do a bit of deep breathing to start regulating. Creating change takes time, effort, and patience, but you're worth it. Because if you decide you're worth it, then people around you will fall more in line with you. You know, as a woman, sometimes we'll want to do something or go somewhere, but we'll want someone to give us permission as well. So it's like taking your autonomy and your authority back, and claiming your right to have your life and to be in your life. The other, and I'll just go through the slides and pick out what I feel is really has really worked for me. Self-compassion, being proud of yourself, recognizing the part of you that wants to change, but equally important, recognizing the part of you that doesn't want to change. And then you have a choice. It's like, do I get out of bed? I don't. And it's like, again, that confidence comes because it's like, well, I've decided to stay here. So there's no more dramas, there's no more stories. It's like, I've decided. Or I decide to get up. So it's back to choice and self-empowerment. And the biggest kind of challenge is we're so familiar in our feeling body that it's kind of like a drug. We get used to our feelings and we miss them when we change our minds and we elevate our energy and we change our mindset. So just really taking note on that if you're in familiar and it's not working for you, then make a change your state, change your mind, go and do something that you normally wouldn't do, practice useful discomfort. And the last thing I want to mention is you have got to face your inner critic. It's an essential part of moving through your life and recognizing these voices in your head that are destructive. Whether they're real or imagined, and even no matter what anyone else will say to us, if you start challenging these thoughts, then it changes your vibration. It changes how you respond to you. So it naturally will bring a greater sense of well-being, and it will help you to make different choices in your food and in your water and how you sleep, because you'll be choosing you and boundarying that inner critic. Okay, so I'm being told to finish. The good news is this is the taster for one-day workshops that are happening here in NIIM with myself and Michelle Woolhouse. So they're the dates. The bookings are through NIIM. There's also, if you want to work individually with me, there's my website and also more information about how I work. And if you want to dive deep, come to Bali. So namaste. Thank you so much for your attention. And yeah.
Thank you, Caroline. I love the invitation that you can take to your bed. I think I'm up for that one. So our next presenter is Romy Burston. Romy is a Melbourne-based integrative nutritionalist, accredited health coach and wellness coach, and body image coach. So, and for those that might like to know, is that Romy also practices here at NIIM. She's run a number of workshops and has more than 20 years experience in working in the nutrition and health industry. So as a nutrition and wellness practitioner, Romy has a combined skill set of human nutrition, behaviour, motivation and health. And this evening she's going to discuss the importance of nutrition in holistic health and how we're a bio-individual, that true nourishment applies to what's on and off your plate. Thank you.
Okay, that was a beautiful transition, Carolyn, into what I'm actually going to talk about, which is the connection of food and nutrition to our bodies and to our health and wellbeing. And I feel very honoured to be here tonight at NIIM to speak to all of you, and also to speak alongside my two amazing co-speakers. So, women's nutrition, it is a huge topic, as I'm sure you can all appreciate, and I have got 20 minutes to talk about it. So what I'm going to do, my plan is to share as much information with you as I can on how to master the basics of holistic nutrition. I'm not going to get too fancy, I'm not going to get too sciencey, because my plan is to invite you to open your minds to my holistic philosophies and recommendations when it comes to food and nutrition. And if you can walk away with one tip or one strategy that I speak about tonight to think about and implement into your life, then that is a great start. So let's go. Okay, this quote, "Take care of your body, it's the only place you have to live in," by Jim Rohn. Now, I thought he must be some amazing doctor, scientist. So I Googled him, and he's an entrepreneur. So I don't know what that means, but he's a very wise entrepreneur, because this quote speaks to me on so many levels. I have it on my vision board and I use it in my practice as well, because the truth is we do just have one body that takes us through our entire life, and it is precious. And women's bodies are like these complex biological supercomputers. What we do is incredible. And every single day of our lives, our bodies are automatically programmed to rebuild, to balance, to heal, to restore and protect us. And every single cell in our body is continually conducting trillions and billions of little chemical reactions all day, so that we can function optimally and so we can be alive, basically. And our bodies are constantly working to be healthy. It wants to be healthy. And what powers our bodies to be able to carry out all these tiny chemical reactions non-stop, and what keeps us alive? Well, that's the foods that we eat. Our food is our fuel that powers us and keeps us alive. So we know that what we eat matters. And I have no doubt that everyone here wants to be healthy. But from a population perspective, things are not going exactly the way we want it to. And this is going to be the only negative slide in my talk. So the good news is that women are living longer than ever before. The average lifespan is 85.4 years, which is pretty good. But we are living more years in ill health. And half of Australian adult females are currently living with one or more chronic health conditions. And many are linked to diet and lifestyle. And the prevalence is rapidly increasing of all of these things: cardiovascular, stroke, type 2 diabetes, cancers, obesity, mental illness. You can read them, you know. Plus, women have a much greater risk of other things like autoimmune conditions, weakened bones, anemia, certain cancers such as breast, ovarian, cervical. And we want to reduce this statistic. This is really high. And the truth is we can, if we start being very preventative with our health and we become very proactive now with our diet and our lifestyle. Sorry, I'm flicking the paper. So what is my holistic nutrition approach? It is a gentle, flexible, non-diet. If anyone follows me on Instagram, you'll know I'm non-diet, and evidence-based approach to healthy eating. I believe in an integrative model where we recognise traditional modern medicine blending with holistic medical treatment approaches as well. I look at the connection between food and nutrition and the whole person, how it impacts our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And I prioritise health with clients by fueling our bodies with nutrient-rich, nourishing, wholesome foods. And while we focused on what we eat, and obviously that is a really important part of the equation, we really delve into how we eat, when we eat, and why we make specific food choices, habits, beliefs, and behaviours around our foods, because that really drives a lot of the choices we make. A lot of people have some pretty strong beliefs around food. It might be from their childhood, it might be from a generational sort of belief, it might be some rules that they've made up for themselves, but ultimately our behaviours around food absolutely drive the decisions about what we choose to eat. So those things are just as important as what we eat. We also look at food as a tool to support the natural healing power of the body. And we also try and identify the root cause of what people's symptoms they're experiencing and delve into that so we can prevent it happening in the future for them. We recognise that food is a huge part of our lives, our lifestyle, our culture, and our identity. It's not just fuel for our bodies. And we also honour bio-individuality, which I will talk about. And we also know that food is literally one part of the health equation. There are so many other factors that influence whether we are healthy or not. Okay, so let's talk about what we're here to talk about is the magic of women's bodies. Okay, I'm sure we all know that women's bodies are designed very differently to men's bodies. So naturally our nutritional needs are going to be different. And what is quite interesting is that a lot of nutritional studies are actually carried out on male subjects or lab animals, and then it's applied to females, which is quite extraordinary when you come to think about it. So, you know, we have very specific nutritional needs, and they evolve as we go through some remarkable changes through life. We go through some really big physical and hormonal changes continually through life, whether it's from our teen years, our young adult years, our fertility years, breastfeeding, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. Our nutritional needs will change as we go through life. It's like we are literally on this lifelong journey of a hormonal roller coaster of body changes as well. And that's a lot for us to deal with. But the beautiful thing is that there is power in the food that we eat. And if we eat well and we know how to nourish our bodies, we can achieve, we can boost energy, we can improve our mood and our mental well-being. And I'm sure you have already heard about the power of food on mood and how much that impacts us. We can regulate our hormones, optimize our gut health, and help maintain a healthy weight for us. And optimize healthy aging and longevity and support us through every stage of life. So nutrition is very personal, and I will click onto that next, which is this concept of bio-individuality. There is no one size fits all approach when it comes to nutritional needs. Each of us have a unique nutrition and health requirement, and different factors also influence what our nutritional needs are, including our age, our gender, our ethnicity, our religion, our activity levels, body composition, food likes and dislikes, lifestyle preferences and practices, our emotional thoughts, our physical environment, our social economic environment. There are so many things that influence what our nutritional needs are. And the foods that work for you might be completely different to the person that's sitting next to you, which can be very confusing for a lot of people because, you know, your friend might be smashing it on keto or feeling on top of the world with their vegan lifestyle, but that can be the total opposite for you. So it's really important to know that You need to find your way of eating, your optimal way of eating, and it is going to be different to your partner, your children, your friend. You need to find your sort of best way of eating. The other thing is you can be the CEO of your body, okay? You are the expert on you, and no one knows your body better than you. The thing is that a lot of us forget to connect with our bodies and listen to our bodies that are constantly communicating where we're at, how we feel, what we like, what we don't like. The problem is that when it's giving us signals, we're often unaware, or we're distracted, or we're just not listening. So I invite you to start listening to your body and what it is telling you. So how do you work out what the formula is for you, for your stage in life, or wherever you are? It's understanding a few more of these key concepts that are not necessarily about what to eat, but based on your behaviours and understanding how these influence what you eat. True nourishment is both on and off the plate. Do you guys believe that, you know, it's not just about what is on your plate. It is not just about the foods that you eat. True nourishment is about what happens off the plate as well, and what's going on in our life and our lifestyle. And when I talk to clients about nutrition, there's never not a consultation where we are not talking about some or many of these other factors, including how are you moving your body and how much are you moving your body, and are you enjoying the way you move your body? How are you sleeping? Sleep is the most underrated part of the whole health equation, and most people aren't sleeping that well. How are you managing your stress? How are you managing your mind and your mindset? How are your connections? How are your relationships in your life with your loved ones? How is your relationship with yourself? Because all of that is going to impact what you decide to eat, as well as other factors as well. And I believe that if you're not addressing or balancing the other areas of your life, that no matter how many kale salads or green smoothies you consume, you are not going to be able to feel like you're in optimal health. You need to balance all areas, because they're a little bit like a domino cascade, whereas if one's a bit out of balance, it can make the others feel out of balance as well. Okay, another very simple concept, but one that we often don't think about, is understanding what we are eating. Okay, so shopping smart. Okay, if your kitchen is stocked with foods that nourish you and healthy foods, you are more likely to eat them. And that's pretty obvious, but a lot of people just go and buy a lot of less healthy foods, and because that's what is easy, or that's what they know, or that's what they get told on the, you know, the packaging, because it's in the health food section, so it must be healthy, but it's not always healthy. And to learn to understand what you are eating and to be able to understand food packaging is actually life-changing for learning to understand what you're eating, to recognize some of the false claims in marketing on food products, or to quickly identify ingredients on the back of the food packaging, can be really powerful in understanding what you eat. And I know it's not always convenient, but home cooking is a beautiful form of self-care and kindness to yourself, because that way you actually control and know what you're eating. It's also enjoyable if you can do it in a way that is convenient for you, simple, easy. Do most of you enjoy cooking? Is that a few nods, many nods? Yep. Not really. I know it can be a little bit of a, you know, on the old conveyor belt, but you know, it allows us to truly nourish ourselves with foods that we know what we're eating. Okay. All right. Another powerful concept that I'm very passionate about is the gut, and the gut as the epicenter of our health. Now, 2,000 years ago, Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut. And I think he was onto something 2,000 years ago. And I also believe that all health also stems from the gut. Have you all heard of the gut microbiome? It's very big at the moment, especially if you are across social media and things like that. It's a really complex inner ecological system that we all have in our bodies. And our gut lining is actually the size, the surface area is actually the size of a tennis court. So all of us have this ginormous surface area of gut in all of us. And, you know, the integrity of that lining can be very much compromised if we are constantly exposing our body to a diet, like a highly processed diet, or foods that don't agree with us or that we're intolerant to. Everyone's gut is unique. As I said, we're all bio-individual. That also includes the gut. And we have this microflora balance that plays a role in supporting our digestive function, our mood regulation, our hormones, our immune response, and inflammation in the body, and even weight management. And it's estimated that 70% of our immune system actually resides in our gut, in that very large area of the size of the tennis court, but also 90% of our happy hormone, serotonin. So if our gut is compromised, it automatically is a red flag that our inflammation and our immunity might be compromised, as well as our mood, because it impacts the serotonin in our mind. So when our microflora is out of balance, our health is compromised. I'm sure you've all heard about prebiotics, probiotics. Prebiotics are the foods that we eat, the plant-based high fiber foods that we eat that ferment in the gut and feed the happy bacteria in our gut. And the probiotics are also in foods that we eat that contribute to that healthy microflora in the gut. And there's a new concept, it's only been spoken about for the last couple of years, but there's postbiotics, which is the newest member of the family. There's only a little amount of study on it, but that is also showing to have a positive effect on our gut. It is basically the waste products of whatever gets churned out after the little microorganisms eat all the prebiotics. So stay tuned for postbiotics. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about that in the future. Okay, when you eat matters. Now, this is not going to be, everyone in the room may not agree with me, but I always think it's ideal to start with a healthy breakfast of some sort. Okay, it doesn't have to be the minute you get up. It doesn't have to be a king's, you know, buffet size. But I really believe that it's important to start your day with some sort of breakfast. So many of my clients, so many women skip breakfast, and then what happens is they end up eating most of their food in the second half of the day, rather than the first half of the day. And I'm getting 5 minutes. And what that means is that, you know, we're obviously more active during the day generally, less active at night, more sedentary, but we're actually feeding and fueling our body most of our food in that second half of the day because we get hungry, which doesn't really benefit our digestive system. It also means that we end up with pretty spiked blood sugar levels. And it also means that we might have those sort of late afternoon, evening sugar cravings because we haven't sort of fed or kept our blood sugar levels consistent through the day by starting with a nice nutrient-filled breakfast. Okay, now I have to go. I'm going to do this quickly. How you eat matters, okay? Are you mindful or are you mindful, okay? We all probably have had that experience where we're eating something and you get to the bottom of the container or you get to the bottom of the packet and you're like, oh my gosh, where did that go? I can certainly relate to that. And that is when we're mindless eating. We are distracted. We, you know, we're either watching TV or out talking socially or distracted on our mobile phones, eating away, and all of a sudden we've eaten probably more than what we wanted. We can be uncomfortably full. It might be something we eat out of emotional sort of difficulties or habit. But it's really powerful to try and, on the flip side, eat more mindfully, where we slow down, we practice being present and in the moment, we choose slower, so our digestive process is more efficient, and we're more in the moment. And sometimes just simply putting your cutlery down between each mouthful can really help you be more in the moment, be more present, be more mindful, and optimize your nutrition, because digestion starts in the mouth. We need to chew our food, or ideally chew our food, and get that process going. Okay, what you need to eat and what to eat matters. Go for variety. Ensure that you get all your essential nutrients in. As women, there are so many, which I'll flick through very quickly on the next slide. Eat mainly foods as close as possible to nature and their original source as possible, and go back to basics. Eat foods that our ancestors would recognize, and prioritize plant-based foods. You know, some people recommend for 30+ plant foods each week, especially to keep that microbial diversity in your gut, and I really believe that as well, but that we should eat mainly plant-based, not only plant-based, but mainly plant-based. Also, honor your likes and dislikes. Don't eat foods just because it's the latest health trend, or because your friend is doing it, or you don't like it. Eat foods that you enjoy, and aim to minimize the ultra-processed foods. Okay, I'm going to skip really quickly here. These are some of the key nutrients for women. I'm not even going to go into detail about them, but there are so many, but these are many of the key nutrients that we try and include in our diet. Okay, quickly, I'm going to talk about what to eat in, how long have I got? Like 2 minutes, okay, that's fine. An abundance of food that Mother Nature created, whether it is animal or plant-based. If they are single ingredient foods, they are going to be foods that our body recognizes and understands. Obviously, if we have intolerances and medical reasons not to eat those foods, that is obviously something separate. But in general, eat the rainbow, eat as many vegetables and some fruits as possible. The different colored vegetables have all different nutrient properties in them. So the bigger the variety, the better. Choose whole grains if you're eating grains. They are minimally processed, less refined. They've got more nutrients in them. I'm going to keep flying. Beans and legumes, a great source of fiber and protein. Okay, and you can probably read as I'm going. Lean meats, poultry, fish, and eggs. Okay, hopefully from happy animals. Hopefully you're getting the, you're choosing from, pasture raised as opposed to caged. I have to go. Awesome. And so preferably pasture raised animals as opposed to caged animals. And I say eggs from healthy and happy chickens, because I think that if they're able to be roaming a little bit, they're going to be a lot happier than caged. But obviously, we buy what we can with the means that we can. Nuts and seeds, another fantastic whole food. If you have dairy products, there are dairy products or their alternatives. Don't fear fats. There are some very good fats out there. I know there's a lot of controversy about certain fats, including trans fats, but there's a lot of healthy fats, and healthy fats are essential for our optimal well-being and function. Add in the herbs and spices, add in some probiotic foods, and be mindful of your consumption of these kinds of foods, okay? The ultra-processed foods, the foods that you basically couldn't make in your own kitchen, containing ingredients that have been very, very significantly modified from their original form, or they're manufactured. I always say, if Mother Nature created it, great. If it's been made in a factory, okay. But if it's been made in a lab, try and avoid it, okay? Excess sugar. We're all eating way too much sugar. Try and be aware of your excess sugar, your excess refined carbs, your saturated trans fats, excess alcohol. These are an example of some of those foods to try and minimize. And if you want to discuss it further, that's you. I was going to say, you're welcome to come and discuss all of this further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Romy. And I think you're offering a discount for new patients. you want to give us a call and make an appointment. So, Dr. Michelle Woolhouse has been a GP for more than 22 years and has undertaken some postgraduate training in mind, body and nutritional medicine. She's a lecturer and ambassador for the NIIM, which is the Australasian College of Nutrition and Environmental Medicine, and is the host of the popular podcast FX Medicine. And we're delighted to have Michelle here working with us at NIIM. And as you heard earlier, Michelle works alongside Carolyn Hayes in terms of the Enliven retreat. So it'd be great. And we're running, as you heard before, we're running one of those at NIIM. So you'll find out more about that on our website. So please keep abreast. So Michelle wants to talk to us tonight about the power of connection in healing. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. Happy International Women's Day to everyone. It's a real honour to be here and to stand alongside these wonderful speakers. But I actually wanted to deliver tonight a really important message to women in general, because women play an incredibly important role on the planet. We play that role in our workplaces, we play that role in the family units, we look after the young and we look after the aging. And I want to take this opportunity tonight to talk to you about some of the things that I have been seeing as a GP, but also what is very real and very significant in the literature and the modern day research, and that is the mental health crisis that's facing women. And we're facing it not only just as individuals and isolated people experiencing what we're experiencing, but we're actually facing it as a community and a culture and a society. So I wanted to, oh, that's me again. I wanted to start off with this quote. And this was actually written by Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti was a very well-known Indian scholar, sage and philosopher, but he died in 1986. So I wonder what he would be feeling right now in 2023, because he writes, it's no measure of health too well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I think that over the last 20, 30 or 40 years, unfortunately, the society has become much, much sicker. And one of the issues that I see is that we have completely and utterly normalised the impact of stress on our lives and the impact of stress inside our bodies. So before the pandemic in 2019 and 2020, there was over 40.9 million prescriptions for antidepressants given in Australia. We've got 9 people per day taking their own life. There was over 1.2 million phone calls to Lifeline last year, and that was up by 30% during the pandemic. We've got 1 in 5 teenagers experiencing anxiety, and we've got 1 in 10 girls in particular engaging in self-harm, and that's from Beyond Blue. And 40% of all of our Year 12 students are actually experiencing a form of mental health. And in fact, a lot of the issues are actually occurring. Antidepressants have been up by 60% in those under 18 over the last 5 years. So what is stress? So this definition was actually given to us in 1966 by quite a well-known stress researcher of the time by the name of Lazarus. And he writes, it's the most beautiful definition I've come across for stress. And he writes, what is stress? So the stress response is a biochemical, it's emotional and physiological change to a perceived or real threat. The body and the brain don't differentiate between what is internal and what is external, and what is real and what is perceived. Therefore, whether the stress is internal, external, mental, emotional, environmental, physical, spiritual, the response remains consistent inside of us. And this is really, really important for all of us to know. So whether we feel stressed is largely dependent upon whether we actually feel like we've got the necessary resources to cope. And then when you look back on Krishnamurti's comment of like, we've got a very stressed society, and sometimes there's a mismatch. Like, it's not just about our internal resources, but it might be about looking at a whole raft of different things going on for us. So physical stress is a big issue. And the statistics, as Romy mentioned, is actually not getting better, it's getting worse. So we've got more and more of this incredible research that metabolic syndrome affects more than 30%. We've got 2/3 of Australians now either overweight or obese, and we've got 1 in 4 children that are in that category as well. 50% of, I can't read that. 50% of the world's, yeah, I know, yeah, 50% of the world are either obese or in the overweight category, and that's from the World in Data Today. And sleep apnea is affecting about 15% of the population, and it's roughly around 33, even up to 40% are experiencing long-term insomnia. So when you look at some of these statistics about why we're currently stressed, you can start to see the pattern emerging. So only 1 in 8 New Zealand kids under the age of 18 reach the recommended amount of exercise per day, and less than 1 in 10 Australian adults meet the recommended daily vegetable intake. So Romy, you have got a good business model. Worldwide loneliness is a massive issue. So that has sharply increased since 2012, since the introduction of the smartphone. We don't know whether there's a direct cause and effect yet, but I think most of us can actually assume we pretty much know that that might be the reason, but especially in girls. And we're seeing loneliness in millennials and in teenagers at quite disturbing levels. We've got 43% of our older population experiencing loneliness, and women in particular are becoming one of the fastest growing groups of homelessness, loneliness and poverty in this country. But I wanted to also talk to you about the internal drivers of stress, because when women come and see me for anxiety, stress, burnout, exhaustion, this is one of the most common and hidden and invisible aspects of stress that I see. And it's not just the stressor that might be going on in their lives, but it's in fact the internal shame and guilt and stigma that not just society gives us, but in fact what we give ourselves. It's like when we don't give ourselves any permission not to cope when life is tough, and we keep pushing on. There's this kind of mantra in the world of like needing to get up and doing more and more and more. The never enoughness of particularly the female population is absolutely enormous. Caroline mentioned the inner critic. So the inner critic is natural for everyone. I'll often talk to women about their inner critic, and they'll often say, oh my God, mine is raging. It can sometimes, when you tune into your own inner critic, it actually can be a total diatribe that is constant and almost invisible. So we've totally normalized the inner critic in our lives. It develops around 3 to 4 years of age as a survival mechanism when we are not able to care and cater for all of our needs. It's virtually the opposite of self-compassion. And as Caroline mentioned, developing the resources of self-compassion inside your body is probably the greatest game changer that you will find for your own personal mental health. And it will literally transform the landscape of your body. Women in particular, I think the advent also of social media are really at risk of the positivity mask, of the inability to ask for help, of the people-pleasing aspects of making sure everybody else is okay. And when everybody else is okay, then we become okay. Okay, we need to start to change that narrative and actually start to own and listen to our own bodies and see what is going on with that. The reason why I bring adverse childhood events up is one of the particular things that I think is really important to understand as we start to look at unraveling how we can really start to attend to our own needs. So 69% of participants, they did a huge study back about 20 years ago, and they looked at about 6,000 people, and they came up with a whole list of adverse childhood events, things like having an aggressive parent, or divorce, or acrimonious kind of divorce, alcoholism within the family, mental illness within the family, incarceration, all sorts of tragedies, death of loved ones, etc. And they found that 69% experienced at least one of these significant adverse childhood events. And that actually led on to chronic long-term, not only mental health issues, but physical health, even got to do with motor vehicle accidents, lower back pain, long-term depression, metabolic syndrome, you name it. And a lot of people actually fail to kind of recognize the impact of their childhood on their mental health, only because we feel like we can't do anything about it. But as Caroline was suggesting, we can unravel some of those key sympathetic nervous system drivers that actually drive us and cause stress in our lives. And the other thing that I think has been really fascinating over the last decade or so, started to look into this concept of the invisible load of motherhood. And it's called the invisible load of motherhood, but I think it can be extended to the invisible load of womanhood, only because it's the stuff that we don't even recognize, nor do the male counterparts within our lives. It's things like booking doctor's appointments, holidays, making sure your mother-in-law's birthday present is bought, Christmas presents, birthday presents, paying bills, etc. And it's so normalized within the community that we don't actually understand that it's a significant load. And I think COVID started to crack the code when women were at home working potentially full-time, homeschooling children, and doing the majority of the domestic load. And I can tell you in my clinic, I hear that all the time. And the husband's just, this is not a husband bashing or male bashing session, but it is a significant issue in the division of labour. So this is your brain, okay? And one of the things that I like to kind of pick out is that our brain evolved over a long, long period of time. And the beautiful thing about having a human brain is we have this enormous frontal lobe that sits behind the back of our forehead. But most of us spend most of our times in what we call the mammalian part of the brain, or the limbic system. Okay, so it's the limbic system, which is the emotional or feeling brain. And that's kind of like the Labrador that seeks love and attention all the time. And if they don't get it, then they get a little bit aggressive. So you need to feed your Labrador kind of biscuits a couple of times a day. So the neocortex, which is really interesting, is actually where we house a lot of our forward thinking and our planning and our judgment. And I don't mean judgment as in negative criticism, but more actually a sense of discernment. And so the reptilian brain started first, and that's kind of the crocodile on the bank of the river who doesn't give any level of concern for the 65 babies that its eggs had just cracked and would kill you in the blink of an eye and would have no remorse, no guilt, no nothing. You're gone. And then we evolved into the limbic system, and we have this vast neocortex which houses so much more spaciousness and understanding. And I'm going to teach you how you can kind of get into that mode. So our sympathetic nervous system is broken up into two parts. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and then there's a parasympathetic nervous system. So as Caroline mentioned, the sympathetic nervous system drives our fight and flight response, and our parasympathetic is our rest and digest aspect. And so both of these systems get activated in times of stress, and then the parasympathetic nervous system comes up and it starts to relax us. Now, in the olden days, when we were in the caveman or cavewomen times, often what happened is the threats to our survival would be fewer and far between. It'd be like a wild animal, a snake, a natural disaster, for example. Whereas now we've got a lot of chronic stress. So we walk through our day, even if the barista doesn't kind of make our coffee just the right way, we start to get stressed. There's traffic stress, there's I've run out of milk stress, there is emails at 11 o'clock at night stress, there's I didn't get enough likes on my Instagram post kind of stress. And so that is causing this kind of chronic stress, and it's actually impacting physically the architecture of our brain. So what you can see on the right-hand side is a healthy brain, and you can see the area of perfusion. So this is a functional MRI. And on the other side is what they call toxic stress, which is akin to that early childhood, adverse childhood events. So when there's very significant chronic stress. But when we're talking about the chronic stress within our society, we're probably somewhere in between. But the point of this slide is to actually share with you how significantly we can change the architecture of our brain and our nervous system. And the reason why I want to tell you this is not to scare the pants off you, but more actually to ensure and to encourage you that coming back from things like anxiety, depression, burnout, and stress actually takes a little bit of time. So the nervous system does take a long time to repair. And it's really important that you know that, because a lot of people jump off the train too early and they think that doesn't work. And really all that's left is the 40.9 million prescriptions for antidepressants, which I can tell you, sometimes they're a fantastic band-aid, but they ain't going to do anything to change the trajectory of mental health issues long-term. And so you really have to engage in patience. Patience is primary importance. I remember when I was a kid or a teenager looking at, what are they called? The 7 qualities of, you know, the things that you need to value, you know, chastity and whatever. And I thought patience was on there. And I was thinking, what on earth is patience on there for? I did not get it until recently as I wound back my own set of burnout. And it requires a whole lot of slow moving and changing. And I want to tell you about the quickest way, because that's what everybody does when we say, I was like, yes, it's really bad, and here's the quickest way. But what I've understood over 25 years of practicing medicine is one of the quickest way to transform stress, burnout, anxiety, and depression is to actually engage in the whole. And one of the key drivers of the whole is, in fact, the heart. So in traditional Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda and in other indigenous cultures, the terminology for the heart is in fact the governor of the body. And it governs every single system through some remarkable characteristics. So about 20 years ago, the heart was categorized as an endocrine system. So some key features of the heart that you must understand how and why it's such a powerful transforming agent within the body. It is fully formed and functioning autonomously by 4 weeks of age in the embryo. The first brain cell is made at 8, 10, 12 weeks, okay? It beats without any input from the brain, and that's a process known as autorhythm, which is why we can do heart transplants. The heart has its own independent nervous system. And the other connection, of course, it's connected to the brain, but when the heart tells the brain what to do, it must do it. But when the brain tells the heart what to do, it can decide. Okay. And researchers have found that the heart can in fact independently think, it can sense, and it can learn, and it can remember. And it is the fastest way into changing and transforming the landscape of your body. it does it in 4 different ways. Okay, so one of the primary ways is called a pulse wave, and we use this in medicine every day. We do a test called a sphygma core test, where we look at the pulse wave. It's not the pulse, it's the wave before the pulse. And we pick it up in our heart rate variability monitors, which are available on a lot of your smart devices. And in my clinic, I have a heart rate variability monitor. So if you're daring enough to come and see me, I'll shove it on your little finger and we'll figure out what your heart rate variability is. But it's a beautiful way of actually checking out your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. And it's the beat-to-beat variation. So it's like the pulse wave becomes the way that your body dances through life. Okay. The heart also makes neurotransmitters. It makes dopamine, it makes serotonin, and it makes oxytocin. And so that way it speaks, it's got its own neurological network, which speaks to the, which is modulated by the vagus nerve, which is a nerve, it's the largest nerve in the human body. And it's our most afferent nerve. So it collects information from the environment and brings it up through the heart and into the brain. It works with the electromagnetic field. And I want to show you this because the heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain. So tonight we are sitting in each other's heart spaces. And so what you would have noticed when Caroline did that meditation is that all of us felt a whole lot more comfortable, not only in ourselves, but also with each other, because we changed the rhythm of our heart and we changed that field. And I love this. This is us sitting with no clothes on in the audience, emitting our magnetic field of the heart. And so when you walk into a room and you feel anger, you know, like when you walk into a room and you can sense, oh, they're having an argument, and you kind of want to creep back out again. Or alternatively, you might walk into a room and it's full of laughter and you start laughing and you have no idea what the joke is. So what you're picking up is that magnetic field of the heart. And in many ways, what Caroline was alluding to is we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but as we start to heal ourselves, we have this incredible energetic impulse to be able to support other people in our space. So as we open up, like that poem of Marianne Williamson, is the more we shine our light and the more we can open up our heart spaces to other people, but also to ourselves, the more coherent our lives will naturally become. So how do you do it? I wanted to, one of the things that helped me get through a really difficult time over the last couple of years was reading the poetry of Rumi. So I have this thing often when I talk on podiums, that I have this thing for old dead men. Hippocrates is one of my favourite. Einstein gets me going, and Rumi is definitely my boyfriend. And so Rumi has this poem that really struck a chord with me that said, there is a voice that lives inside you that doesn't have words. Listen. And so one of the most powerful things is when we start to find spaciousness in our lives. So Caroline was mentioning that automated response, that survival mechanism within our own brains. And Viktor Frankl was very famous after he was an Austrian psychiatrist after the concentration camps of creating this. The quote is that you need to allow that spaciousness so you can stop the reactivity and learn to respond to life. And that's where we come into the heart space, and that naturally will enhance the frontal lobes of our brain. So I put together this little acronym. I changed it a little bit, but one of the well-known ones is called RAIN. Tara Brach is a very well-known meditation teacher out of the United States, and she talks about the first stages when we're in a difficult emotion is to learn to reflect and go, oh, I'm in a difficult situation. Oh, I'm feeling very overwhelmed. Oh, feeling utterly humiliated. Whatever we are looking at is really important, and bring attention to ourselves, like as if it's a sign that we need something extra. And so attention also goes very beautifully with the breath, because the breath is always in the present moment, and it is one of the most exquisite ways of settling down the heart. The way I like to think about the lungs is it's like a massage for the heart, because it sits there and it cradles it, and as we breathe, the heart just gets an idea that it can rest in safety, and we can all do that. And I would say to you, if you need any advice at all, is befriend your breath like there's no tomorrow, effectively. And then the other curiosity thing is inquiry. So inquiry kind of means curiosity. So start exploring your emotional landscape rather than reacting. Oh, that's interesting. I feel really angry. Why do I feel so angry? Maybe I might just wait. The anger may transform into fear. It may transform into guilt. It may transform into sadness. Or you might be feeling angry and it might be actually very, very real feeling for you, and that you might need to learn how to sit with that. And then, of course, the last one is actually about nurturing. So we talked a little bit about self-compassion and about the power of self-nurturing. And it's a skill that we all need to learn. It's like we would cradle a little baby or a little 3 or 4-year-old. I often say to people, like, you know, when a little 3 or 4-year-old at kindergarten has got separation anxiety, we wouldn't yell at it. Like if we wanted to coax them into the room, you know, away from their caregiver into a kindergarten session, we would talk very kindly and very softly, and we can transform that landscape inside ourselves. And the other magnificent thing about the brain is that you can fake it until you make it. So you can pretend to be nurturing even though you don't feel like it at the start. And I can promise you, within a week or 2 weeks of practicing these skills, something starts to change. And so that's the RAIN mechanism. So reflection, attention, inquiry, and nurture. I'm just going to skip over that. I just wanted to bring to your attention, like Caroline did and also Amanda did as well, is that we are really excited to be able to bring this opportunity to run a 1-day retreat with NIIM. We've set aside on Caroline's slide is a couple of dates that we've put aside, and Susanna said that you're going to receive an email tomorrow about some of those dates. So if you're interested, we'd love you to put them in your diary and come along. So in many ways, it's going to be a deep dive and an opportunity to really explore these concepts in a very embodied way. And then, as Caroline mentioned, we're also running a retreat in Bali. It's called Awakening Wisdom. We've found the most exquisite place in Bali, which is like a cocoon. And so we're looking to create this incredible retreat. It's all single room accommodation. The dates are there. You're welcome to go onto that website and register your interest or have a look around, or feel free to make a time to talk to either of us about that really special experience. And lastly, I wanted to offer you the opportunity, as Amanda mentioned, The Wonder Within is released in October last year, and NIIM have been so incredibly supportive of the book and the work and the research that went into that. And tonight I want to offer both online and face-to-face a 10% discount for International Women's Day, and so it's available out the front. It's full of the information that I shared with you tonight, along with lots of stories, lots of practical tips, and there's also meditations on the website that you can go to read along and follow along. So thank you for your attention. And this is one of the most magical quotes, and there is a voice that doesn't use words, and I hope you never forget to listen to your own heart. Oh.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, I wonder if we might be able to bring the chairs up